This is Radio Now 95.3 FM.
You're welcome back into the conversation. It's still Africa in Perspective here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. This week on the conversation, we turn to Senegal and speak with Mr. Mamadou Chor. He is in Senegal, and we have spoken with him extensively on the situation in Senegal. Mr. Chor, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
So last time we spoke with you, we were speaking prior to the situation that has developed in Senegal, a situation that has seen protests go through various parts of Senegal. The protests have been focused on the anger of the people towards the postponement of elections by President Macky Sall. Now, since we last spoke to you, what has happened in Senegal?
Yeah, what had happened is the unilateral decision of the president to postpone the presidential election due on February 25th. And what is the most tragic thing in the case is he waited until last Saturday when all the 20 candidates was about to start the electoral campaign to announce it at the middle of the day. And really, most of Senegalese were mad at him because if there is something Senegalese are fond of is defending the democratic model of Senegal, which is held in West Africa. When you look at the sub-region, how democracy is challenged in French-speaking countries, you look at Benin, what is happening there in Cote d'Ivoire. So Senegal was at least the last in the class to defend its democracy. But what happened last Saturday, made most Senegalese mad at the president.
Right. We saw protests and news of protests happening on Monday. There were protests as well on Sunday evening. And this week, we've also seen news of opposition figures in Senegal arrested and jailed because they supported the protests or they were at the protest grounds. Can you confirm to us if this is the actual case?
Yeah, some leaders of mostly the opposition party of Ousmane Sonko, who is currently in jail and who is very popular. Some of members of his party, among which some members of the parliament, they were arrested, but right away they were released. The big question is when the minister were gathering for the weekly meeting, the council of the ministry yesterday, in the press release, the president said that he want, peace to come back. And he, told his Minister of Justice to make maybe all his best to release political prisoners, because currently more than 1,000 people are in jail for political purposes, and most of them are members of the PASTEF party, with the party of Ousmane Sonko, which has been dissolved. And for that, we'll wait to see what will happen in the next days. But because the president said that he wants a national dialogue heading to the new date for the president's election, meaning on December the 15th, because he wants the election to take place at the end of this year. But in the meantime, he wants a national dialogue, maybe to talk to everybody. Now we are waiting if maybe Ousmane Sonko is in prison, what he'll make of him, if he'll be released or not. Because no matter what you think of all these things, Ousmane Sonko has his say, because people consider that if the election takes place today, even if he is not candidate, the candidate chosen by Ousmane Sonko is likely to win the election.
And that candidate specifically, you mentioned, is also a member of his party. But you've also just informed us that Ousmane Sonko's party has been dissolved. How does that play out in the elections if they were to hold on the 15th of December?
Yeah, in fact, the party has been dissolved at the end of July when Usman Sonko was arrested. This, the same day he was sent to prison, they dissolved the party at the end of July. And since then, all the activities of this party is a problem for these members of the party, because the police forces don't want them to all activities all around the country. But I mean, they are trying to do their best to continue, even if the party is dissolved, under new forms of activities. And the party is still very, very strong, because among the 20 candidate who was supposed to compete for the end of February election, the number 2 of his party, called Basiru Jomai Faye, who is himself in prison as Usman Sonko, was the one people see as winning the election, which means this party is, even if it's dissolved, is still a very strong party in the political landscape.
Right. So can you speak to us as to the mood of the Senegalese people at this time? Because we are seeing possibly an extension of tenure, at least by 10 months, of Macky Sall. And you have rightly reminded us that Senegal is one of the countries in Africa that has seen an uninterrupted civilian democratic rule since gaining independence. So what is the mood of the people? Are protests still happening across Senegal?
No, in fact, there is no way to protest, because there is a lot of police forces out in the street. Even if when they were, voting this law, postponing the election on Monday, anybody could not protest in Dakar. And as you remember, when we make a flashback on June 23rd, 2011. So there was a big protest then, to bring the MPs not to vote a law most Senegalese was against us. But at that time, the then President Abdoulaye Wade allowed people to go to the National Assembly in front of and protest. And Macky Sall didn't allow this time people to do that. So that's why there's no way to protest. People are trying to make some protests, but as soon as you get on the street, you will, see police officers, and then they will arrest people, and then later on release them. The mood is very bad, but people, Senegalese cannot protest against, this decision, a very unilateral decision, and this is the first time in Senegalese history, politics, to see a presidential election postponed.
Mr. Chob, just before we let you go on this conversation, we're seeing the tenure of Macky Sall extended at least till December the 15th. Is there any chance that between now and then he might be able to repair his reputation to enable his party remain in power at the top of Senegal?
So when we look at how the international community is condemning his decision, maybe we are expecting, because his current term will finish on April the 2nd, starting on April the 3rd. Most Senegalese consider that they won't be considering him as their president, because it means for the next 10 months they see him as somebody who is not legal and legitimate. So he'll be in big trouble starting early April. We don't know. Maybe in the meantime, what will happen, because there is a lot of pressure coming from the international community, the United States of America, even the ECOWAS. They release a second communique, telling the Senegalese authority to do their best to hold this election. And there is even a meeting in Abuja today of the ECOWAS to talk about the situation in Senegal, following this decision, which is very funny, because Senegal was a champion telling this military coup d'etat in Mali, condemning them in Niger and Burkina Faso. And today Senegal is on the hotspot, about electoral election in West Africa.
Mr. Cho, thank you very much for speaking with us today and on this conversation. Our guest this morning is Mr. Mamadou Chor. Mr. Mamadou Chor is the President of the Council for the Observation of the Rules of Ethics and Professional Conduct. He spoke to us on the latest developments in Senegal, where the presidential elections have been postponed for 11 months on the instructions of the President Macky Sall, as well as a resolution that has been passed in the Senegalese legal house. We'll continue with Africa in Perspective, where we bring you interesting facts about African nations. Do stay with us.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM.